The way I like to see it is use your heart to guide you and your confidence through love. Do things from the heart. Practice authenticity and vulnerability from the heart, and that is ultimately where your true self stems from. Hello my loves, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here, and today I want to talk about being vulnerable in your authenticity. Most often, vulnerability is placed in a sense of experiencing harm, but it has a double meaning when it comes into play with human flourishing. Vulnerability doesn't have to be understood as something bad. It is the core of all emotions and feelings. To feel is to be vulnerable. As Brené Brown would put it, to believe vulnerability is weakness is to believe that feeling is weakness. It is the birthplace of joy, belonging, happiness, courage, and authenticity. Ultimately, if we want more clarity on our purpose or developing a more meaningful relationship with ourselves, then vulnerability is the path. When we're able to share things that have hurt us, we are able to open ourselves up to feeling more compassion in the act of sharing, and from there we're able to generate new avenues of thought. To find more peace in my life, I knew that I had to be more vulnerable with myself too. And being vulnerable with myself meant connecting with the deeper and scarier things that were going on. But it also meant that I was putting myself in a position to provide real self-compassion towards myself, and that is really where my healing came about. As someone who has struggled with self-loathing most of my childhood, I had to really get into a groove of being more gentle and kind with myself. It isn't something that clicks right away, but if you do it long enough, it forms into a lasting habit. Ultimately, when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you allow yourself to connect better with your deepest feelings and needs in that moment. I think it's fair to say that we all have a fear of being judged if we're vulnerable or being misunderstood. We fear this judgment, and we fear being misunderstood or being embarrassed or rejected. Basically, emotional risk-taking is never easy, but it is worth it. Essentially, the further apart that we are from our outer self versus our inner self, the more ability that we allow for anxiety and depression and sadness to creep in. When you are able to expose yourself to the fear and let go of the judgment that you'll face, the negative reps of vulnerability often diminish. Putting in the work to be unapologetically yourself is probably one of the most graceful things you could ever do for yourself. Being able to express yourself in sentiments of disappointment and sadness, or sentiments of love and compassion, ultimately allow yourself to be vulnerable and authentic. People often associate vulnerability as weakness, but I see it as an emotional strength. Any attitude or behavior that you present that will leave you feeling disconnected from your unpleasant feelings will often make you feel more vulnerable. So when you behave out of fear, you disallow yourself to the right source of information and the time and space away to really reevaluate if this is the best decision that you should be making for yourself. At the end of the day, vulnerability takes courage, and so does authenticity. So when you're finding your authenticity, begin doing a self-inventory of what makes you, you. What are your convictions? What are your morals? And what are your passions? What things make you spark? What things drive you in life? I think getting really granular and getting into the nitty-gritty of this even if you feel self-exposed, getting real with yourself is the first step towards finding your authenticity and really understanding what that means for you. Things that I think really help you get into a deeper level of connecting to your authenticity is by doing things that connect you to your natural state of being. So that could be things such as yoga, meditating, writing, journaling, things that make you feel closest to your highest self, things that put you in tune with your highest self. We all know that being authentic is being present as you truly are, as you are and nothing else. It's the feeling of being truly alive and truly present in the moment. When you're trying to find your authenticity, remind yourself that your emotions are valid and they're real and they matter. I don't want anyone to ever feel like their emotions don't matter or their feelings don't matter. And there might be a few of you that are watching this who have grown up feeling like their emotions and their feelings haven't been validated, whether that's been through family or friends or anyone else. And I'm here to let you know that your feelings, whatever they are validated, are real, are true, and they matter. And that's why it's so important to search for your authenticity and practice your authenticity and to just bask in who you truly are, despite what anyone thinks. A quote that I quite like, which is from a certified life coach called Karen Anderson, is when you are no longer afraid of what others will think, you are more willing to put yourself out there in all various ways there are to be able to do that. And I think that's a pretty awesome quote. And when you're able to be truly vulnerable and be willing to expose yourself, the good, the bad, the ugly, it does seem overwhelming at first, but it's probably one of the most liberating things ever, because you're being your true self and you're not holding back. So when you're defining what vulnerability means to you, think long and hard about it. And if it's easier, write it down, list bullet points, write out paragraph after paragraph, whatever works for you, but get detailed on what vulnerability really, really does mean for you. What will it take to bring out my more vulnerable and authentic side? What ways can I embrace vulnerability and authenticity? What holds me back from being vulnerable? I think understanding what fears stop you from being vulnerable and authentic is good to write down, unless you just say it in your head. But I think having it on paper and really seeing, okay, these are the fears of what prevents me from being fully open and expanding my true self to everyone around me. So being able to understand that is a really, really valuable step. And then just understanding what vulnerability really does mean to you. What helps you be more authentic and more you. Okay, I know what you're thinking with this one. You're like, I cannot talk to myself in the mirror. That is strange and uncomfortable and weird. Well, just try it. I mean, when you first do it, it's definitely going to be uncomfortable and just plain awkward, I guess. But I think that's what vulnerability is all about. It's about showing up for yourself, putting yourself into positions of feeling uncomfortable and feeling afraid, but doing it anyway. So try and give yourself a pep talk, and while you're at it, try and amp yourself up. I think that this is a really powerful practice to crack yourself open and strengthen your relationships, because ultimately, if you're allowing yourself to be more loving and compassionate with yourself, then you're more easily able to provide more love and compassion for other people too. Okay, so with this point, get yourself out of your head. Get yourself out of the fear that is holding you back, and be willing to put a step forward to facing things that frighten the fuck out of you. You can sign yourself up for things that you've never done before, whether that's a dance lesson or surfing or cooking class, anything, whatever it is that has intrigued you but you've never really taken that first leap to getting involved. Consider it and try and start it. I think the worst thing that you can do for yourself is when you feel vulnerable and you have these emotions come up and they're going to be unpleasant, is suppressing them and numbing them like they didn't even happen, because eventually they're going to come up and it's going to be an explosion. So the best thing that you can do for yourself is face the unpleasant feelings, know that you're safe and that it is completely natural and amazing to be and relish in your authenticity. I think another thing as well is holding ourselves accountable for our behavior. So if we notice that we tend to get a little bit defensive, take a step back from the situation, reflect on what is actually happening, take a breath, and reevaluate if that's the right decision, the right feeling to be having. See if there are other ways that you can choose to respond differently rather than being defensive. Ultimately, we want to practice. And like any good deed, vulnerability takes work. It takes a shitload of work. But you have to put yourself out there, and eventually the fear of rejection will go away. It's like with any fear. If you do it long enough, you begin to feel more confident and more at ease, and the fear just begins to dissipate. The way I like to see it is use your heart to guide you and your confidence through love. Do things from the heart. Practice authenticity and vulnerability from the heart. And that is ultimately where your true self stems from. So let yourself embrace in the confidence and embrace in the fear through love and through the self-compassion that we've spoken about. That is it for this video. I really hope that it has helped you in some way. Please let me know down in the comments below what makes you feel vulnerable. Vulnerability and authenticity is different for everyone, and that's what makes us all so damn unique. So please let me know down below. I'd really love to know. And yeah, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I just want to extend my loving hand and my heart to all of you and help you guys live your best life. And I hope these videos are insightful and practical and encourage you to do the work. And I'm so grateful for all of you, and I thank you so much for watching. I'm very appreciative, and I hope you guys have a great day or evening wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, bye.